Fong, are you okay?
Yes, I'm okay. I just feel bored.
Fong, imagine if studying wasn't just sitting in a classroom, but actually stepping into a whole new world. What if we could learn through experience instead of just reading books?
That sounds amazing, but how does it actually help us learn better?
With AI-powered VR, we don't just hear about things, we live them. A medical student could practice surgery in a virtual hospital. Engineering students could design buildings in a 3D world. And history students could visit ancient civilizations.
That does sound exciting, but what about critical thinking? We don't want students just staring at cool simulations without actually learning.
Great questions. The system adjusts to each student's level, giving them real challenges to solve. Instead of memorizing facts, they will use problem-solving skills in real-world scenarios.
Wow, it's more about applying knowledge than just remembering it. That's smart. But what about exam? Cheating is a big issue these days.
That's where VR exams come in. Every student gets a different AI-generated question designed just for them. The AI tracks their progress and tests understanding, not memorization.
Ooh, that would make it impossible to copy answer, and it would encourage originality. But teamwork is also a big part of university learning.
Absolutely. In VR classrooms, students from different countries can work together on real projects. Imagine solving global issues with classmates from all over the world.
That's amazing. It also sounds like a great way to train for leadership. Dealing with real situations in the VR world would help students become better decisions makers.
Exactly. The future university wouldn't just teach facts. It would prepare students to be creative, ethical, and proactive leaders.
I love this idea. Let's turn it into a podcast and show everyone.
Yeah, sure, let's go.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to our podcast, where we dive into the latest trend shaping the future of education. Today, we are talking about something really exciting: virtual reality in education. Imagine stepping into a history lesson and walking through ancient Rome, or practicing a new language by virtually traveling to another country. Sounds amazing, right? Well, we are about to explore exactly how VR is revolutionizing learning. And to join me in this conversation is my fellow IPG TESOL student, Fong.
Hey Dan, super excited to be here. For a long time, people thought that we are just a gaming tool, but now it makes waves in classroom. And today, we are going to explore how it's changing education. We will look at the benefits, challenges, and real-life application. And of course, how this fit into Malaysia education system.
Exactly. So, whether you are a student, a teacher, or just someone interested in future of learning, stick around because this is going to be a fascinating discussion.
Oops.
Let's kick things off by discussing why VR is such a game changer in education. Traditional learning often means sitting through lectures, reading textbooks, and memorizing facts. But VR takes things to a whole new level by making students active participants in their learning experience.
Absolutely. Instead of just reading about something, memorizing the book, students get to experience it firsthand. Imagine learning about the human body by actually stepping inside it into exploring organs in 3D. Or history student can witnessing historical events unfold in real time. It is entirely new way to learn.
And language learning. As a class of students, we can see how VR helps learners immerse themselves in a real-world situation, like ordering food at a restaurant in Paris or navigating an airport in New York. This kind of interactive experience makes learning so much more effective.
Exactly. And it is not just about fun and engagement. Research showed that people retain 90% of what they experience in VR compared to 30% from reading and 10% from lectures. There is a huge leap in learning efficiency.
So now, we're talking about the most exciting aspect of VR, its ability to completely transform the way students experience learning. Imagine if education wasn't just about sitting in a classroom, reading from textbook, or just listening to lectures. What if students could step inside their lesson, interact with the subject matter, and learn by doing rather than just memorizing? Sounds like something out of a science fiction movie, right?
Exactly. But this isn't science fiction anymore. This is what VR can actually do. Think about medical education, medical students. For example, instead of just studying 2D images in textbook or watching video like surgery that's done by the professional doctor, they can put on a VR headset and literally walk through a 3D virtual human body. They can zoom in on organ, examine how the heart pumps blood, or even simulate a surgery, which participating complex procedure in a safe, controlled environment before ever stepping into a real operating room.
And it's not just limited to medicine. Engineering students can design and test structures in a virtual environment, adjusting materials and stress factors to see how their buildings would hold up in real life. And for history students, this is incredible. VR allows them to travel back in time. Instead of simply reading about the fall of the Malacca Sultanate, they can stand in 1511 and watch history unfold around them. They can walk through ancient civilization, witness historical event firsthand, and even interact with AI-driven historical figures.
That's what makes VR so powerful. It doesn't just tell students about a subject, it lets them experience it. Learning becomes something that lives through, making lessons more engaging, interactive, and also more important and unforgettable.
But here's the thing, VR isn't just about full visual and immersion. One of its biggest strengths is how it pushes students to develop critical thinking and problem-solving skills. Let's take business student as an example. In a traditional classroom, they might study case studies and theoretical business tech strategies. But in VR, they can run their own virtual company.
Yes, I really totally agree with you. And I imagine a virtual economy where students have to make real-time decisions on budgeting, marketing, and logistics. Every choice that make has real consequences within their simulation. If they cut costs too aggressively, their product quality suffer. If they invest too much in marketing but in no customer service, their reputation take a hit. It forces them to think strategically, analyze outcomes, and deal with the consequences, just like in the real business world.
And this kind of learning isn't just for business. In environmental science, students can experiment with climate policies. What happens if a country suddenly bans fossil fuels? What if reforestation efforts are doubled? VR allows them to manipulate variables and see how their choices impact the environment over time.
Or we can take raw student as an example. Imagine preparing for a court case in the virtual courtroom where they argue cases in front of AI-powered judges and interact with virtual witnesses. They have to think on their feet, present arguments, and counter objections in real time. This kind of training is invaluable.
It's all about active learning. Instead of just memorizing theories, students are placed in realistic scenarios where they have to think critically, solve problems, and make decisions, just like they would in the real world. Now, let's talk about something that could completely change how we assess students: VR-based exams. Traditional assessment usually involve written tests or multiple choice questions, which often just measure how well students can memorize facts. But what if we could evaluate them based on real-world application instead?
Yes, that's where VRism comes in. Think about pilots. They aren't just tested with written exam, right? They have to prove their skill in the flight simulator before getting certified. VR applies the same idea to other fields too.
For example, instead of asking medical students theoretical questions about treating a heart attack, VR could put them in a high pressure virtual emergency room where they have to diagnose a patient, administer treatment, and handle complications, all in real time. If they make a mistake, they see the consequence and learn from them in a risk-free environment.
Yes, and this method works across multiple fields. Architectural students could present virtual 3D blueprints, walking their professor through their designs. And engineer students could test their structure under simulated threat conditions. The results: more hands-on, practical assessment methods that ensure students actually understand what they have learned rather than just memorizing from the exam.
And one more thing, VR makes cheating nearly impossible. In traditional exams, students might be able to copy answers or use hidden notes. But in VR, they are actively engaged in a scenario where they have to apply their knowledge. There's no way to fake it.
For me as a student, it's quite terrible, but it sounds interesting too.
Hmm. Yeah, I agree with you. Hmm. Of course, as exciting as all of this sound, we have to address the ethical concern around VR in education. With more technology comes more data collection, and that raises an important question. How do we protect student privacy?
That's a huge issue. VR systems track everything, even though from a student eyes movements to their decisions making patterns. If this data isn't handled properly, it could be misused. What if companies use it to profile students unfairly? Or worse, what if this information is sold to advertisers?
And what about AI-powered grading? If an AI system is evaluating students, how do we ensure fairness? If the AI has built-in biases, it might favor certain type of responses or problem-solving method over others.
And here another big question. How do we balance technology with human interaction? No matter how advanced VR becomes, education still requires mentorship, discussions, and human connections. Like the traditional, we still need to have teacher, and VR should be a tool to assist teacher, not replace them.
Yes, I totally agree with you. Now, let's wrap up this section by looking at one of the most exciting possibilities: custom virtual classrooms. Imagine if learning spaces weren't confined to physical building anymore. What if classroom could be designed to perfectly fit each subject?
Wow, that's an amazing concept. Imagine a historian class where students walk through ancient civilizations, touching artifacts, and interacting with AI-driven historical figures. Our science class where students conduct experiments in a fully equipped virtual lab without any risk of explosions and toxic spill.
And for the best part, virtual classrooms aren't limited by geography. A Malaysian student could sit in a VR lecture hall alongside students from Japan, the US, or Germany, all learning from the same world-class professor. VR classroom remove barriers, making quality education accessible to everyone.
Wow, this is future of education, learning without limit. And it also seems like cut costs because we no need to go to abroad. Then we can just interact with abroad students through VR.
Yes, that's right. And that's why VR is such a game changer. It makes learning more immersive, more interactive, and more effective than ever before. Alright, before we dive into the details, let's take a moment to step back and ask a fundamental questions. How does virtual reality, or VR, align with the Malaysian philosophy of education? Because when we talk about education in Malaysia, we are not just talking about academic or passing exams. Our national philosophy emphasizes a holistic approach, one that nurtures students intellectually, emotionally, spiritually, and physically. The real question is, can VR actually support this vision?
Yeah, that's really important point down. A lot of people see VR as just another piece of technology, something cool or futuristic, maybe even just for entertainment. But in reality, VR has the potential to transform the way we teach and we learn. And what fancy- fascinating is, if used correctly, it doesn't just fit into our education system, and it actually enhances the very principles we stand for. So, let's break it down on one step at a time.
First up, intellectual development. One of the core goals of our education system is to nurture critical thinking. We want students to be problem solver, decision maker, and creative thinker, not just passive learner who memorize facts and regurgitate them in exams. The traditional way of learning, where students sit in classroom and listen to lectures, can only go so far. But for VR, now there's a whole different level.
Yeah, exactly. Imagine you are a student studying history. It's boring, right? Instead of flipping to a textbook and trying to picture what ancient civilizations look like, you could walk through a virtual recreation of ancient Rome or explore the Great Wall of China as if you were actually there. You are not just reading about history, you are experiencing it on the first hand. This kind of immersion helps students truly connect with what they are learning, making knowledge come alive in a way that no textbook even could. This is what education should be.
Yeah, and it's not just about history. Think about economics. Instead of memorizing supply and demand curve, a student could run a virtual economy, setting price, managing resources, and making real-time policy decisions. They see the immediate effect of their choice, learning not just story, but how to apply it in real-world situations. It's a hands-on, interactive approach to learning that encourages critical thinking in a way traditional methods never could.
Yes, I have the same perspective with you, but and let's not forget about STEM STEM subject. Science, technology, engineering, and mathematics can sometimes feel abstract when taught in a classroom setting. But VR allows students to conduct virtual experiments, build engineering models, or even explore the human body in 3D. Imagine a student being able to shrink down and travel through the bloodstream see how oxygen is carried to different parts of the body in real time. That's the kind of experience that stick with you, making learning not just effective, but unforgettable.
Yes, you are right. But education isn't just about intellectual development. It's also about shaping individuals who can collaborate, communicate, and lead. Emotional intelligence and social skills are just as crucial as academic knowledge. The question is, can VR help in that?
I think absolutely yes. One of the most powerful aspects of VR is that it creates a shared space where students can interact, collaborate, and solve problems together. Imagine students from different parts of Malaysia or even different countries like China, Europe, Australia. They can working on a group project inside a virtual environment that might be designing a city together, solving a global crisis, or even running a business. These kind of experiences teach them teamwork, leadership, and also effective communication skills. These skills are essential in today's world.
And beyond that, VR can also help in develop emotional resilience. Think about leadership training. Instead of reading about conflict resolution, a student could be placed in a VR simulation where they have to mediate a dispute between two employees in a workplace. They have to navigate emotions, listen actively, and make tough decisions. It's one thing to read about handling conflict. It's another to experience it in a realistic scenario where your decisions have actual consequence.
That's such a good point. Besides that, VR can also be a tool for developing empathy. Imagine a student stepping into the shoes of refugee, experiencing what it's like to be displaced from their home due to war or disaster, or a simulation where they experience life as someone with a disability, understanding the challenges of accessibility firsthand. These experiences help students feel and understand different perspectives, making them more compassionate and socially aware.
Speaking of values, we can't ignore moral and ethical education. Malaysia education philosophy places a strong emphasis on developing individuals with good character, integrity, and strong moral principles. But can VR actually help instill their values?
Definitely, one of the most fascinating uses of VR in education is ethical decision making. Imagine a student in a business simulation where they have to choose between maximizing profit or adopting a more sustainable, environmentally friendly approach. What do they prioritize? How do their decisions affect people and the planet? This scenario makes students think deeply about ethics, or consequences, reinforcing moral value through experience rather than just theory.
And it's not just about business. VR could also be used to teach cultural and religious values in a meaningful way. Imagine students being able to virtually visit mosques, temples, churches, and other places of worship, learning about different beliefs and traditions in an immersive and respectful way. The kind of learning promotes tolerance, respect, and understanding. Values that are so important in our multicultural society. And finally, we can't forget critical and experimental learning. Malaysia's education philosophy recognizes that learning should be hands-on and engaging, not just theoretical. This is another area where VR has massive potential.
Yes, exactly. In medicine, for example, We are allowed students to practice surgery before they even touch a real patient. They can make mistakes, refine their technicals, and build confidence. These are in a risk-free environment. And also, this helps the surgery become can be more successful and reduce the risk.
Yes, and it's not just about medicine. Engineering students can design and test structures in VR. Architects can walk through their blueprint before construction even begins. And aviation students can practice flying in realistic flight simulator. The possibilities are endless.
Yes, and even physical education could benefit. Imagine a VR-based fitness program where students learn proper technical for sport or martial arts, or rehabilitation simulation for physiotherapy students, where they interact with virtual patients and practice treatment plans. It's all about learning through experience.
So, basically, VR isn't just a cool gadget. It's a tool that, if used correctly, can transform education. It aligns perfectly with Malaysian philosophy by promoting well-rounded, future-ready learners.
Exactly. But we also have to be mindful of how we implement VR in school. It needs to be accessible, ethical, and aligned with our cultural and educational values. If we introduce VR with purpose and intentions, it has the power to shape the next generation of leader, innovator, and problem solvers.
Right? So, we have seen how VR has the potential to revolutionize the education in Malaysia. But let's be real. There are quite a few roadblocks standing in the way. If we want to make VR a reality in our classroom, we need to tackle three major challenges: cost, adapting to new teaching methods, and last but not least, digital infrastructure.
Yes, let's start with the biggest hurdle, money. Can we afford VR without money? No. VR isn't cheap. We are talking about high-end headset, especially learning software and regular maintenance. Big universities like UN, UKM, UTM, or APU might be able to afford it in the next 5 to 10 years. But smaller institutions, they could take much longer to catch up.
That's a real concern. In fact, there was a study in the US back in 2021 that showed schools that adopted VR saw their digital infrastructure costs shoot up to 40%. Imagine if the same thing happens here in Malaysia. If we are not careful, we could see a widening gap between well-funded urban universities and smaller, less funded institutions, especially in rural areas.
Yes, but there's a way forward. The government and private sector need to step in and help bridge the gap. One possible solution is a government-backed VR leasing program. University could rent VR equipment at subsidized rates instead of buying it outright. That will make it a lot more affordable and ensure more students get access to this technology, even though rural area.
Yes. So, alright, let's say we somehow make VR affordable for every university. That still doesn't solve the next challenge: getting educators to actually use it. Let's be honest, changing the way we teach isn't easy. Traditional teaching has been around forever, and asking lecturers to suddenly switch to VR-based lessons is a big ask.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, as you know, nowadays teacher, already been old and they didn't familiar with technology. And a lot of lecturers have been teaching the same way for years. And now we are expecting them to completely change their approach. No way. This is not something that happens overnight. It's not just about using VR. It's about rethinking how lessons are structured so they make full use of what VR has to offer.
So, for some universities, like MMU and APU, might make the transition faster because they already focus on the tech-based learning. But a full nationwide shift, they could take anywhere from 10 to 15 years, especially if lecturers don't receive proper training and support.
Yes, the key here is gradual adoption. Universities shouldn't rush to introduce VR in every subject right away. Instead, they should start with few where VR makes the biggest difference. Like they can start with medicines, engineering, and history before expanding to others area over time.
Sounds correct, right? Alright, last but definitely not least, digital infrastructure. We need to ask ourselves, is Malaysia internet fast and stable enough to support our VR learning? The answer is yes and no. Urban universities in KL, Penang, and Johor might not have much trouble, but what about rural areas?
Yes, this is a major challenge. As me, I am definitely a city girl grown in KL, but for other area, we are just like watching YouTube or scrolling through social media. It requires high speed and low latency internet for a smooth and immersive experience. So for me, KL, I think this doesn't have a problem. But if students in rural area don't have access to stable connections, they will be left out of VR learning entirely.
The solutions? Investing in nationwide 5G and expanding fiber optic networks. If we don't fix the infrastructure gap, VR education will remain a privilege for urban students, while rural areas struggles to keep up.
Yes, I totally agree with you.
Now, we have talked about the challenges. Now, let's focus on the solutions. What can Malaysia do to speed up VR adoption in education? Here are 6 strategies that could help make VR a reality in our classroom.
Yes, I think first thing first, government play an important role. Government should do funding. The government need to step in with grants and incentives to help university afford VR technology. But it's not just about public money. Private, private technology company also have a role to play. If they can sponsor VR learning labs or partner with university, we could accelerate VR adopting significantly.
Yes, we cannot really apply the VR for the whole country without money. Here's something we don't always think about. Most VR learning content is developed overseas. But education isn't just one size fits all. If we want VR to work in Malaysia, we need local VR contents that align our syllabus and culture.
Yes, exactly. Imagine history student using VR to walk through the Malacca Sultanate, or a science student conducting virtual experiment using Malaysia biodiversity. We need to collaborate with local technology company to develop content that actually makes sense for Malaysian students.
This one's simple. VR won't work without fast, reliable internet. The government needs to continue expanding 5G and fiber optic network, especially in rural areas, to make sure all students have equal access to VR education.
Yeah, it's just seems like we have said it before. And also, even if we have the best VR system, it won't matter if people don't know how to use it. So, training lecturer and student is important. And training is the key. And university need to run VR workshop to help lecturer and student get comfortable with this new way of learning.
It's not just about knowing how to use VR. It's about knowing how to teach with it. Lecturers need to learn how to design interactive and engaging lessons, then take full advantage of VR abilities.
Yes, you are right. And besides that, instead of jumping straight into full adoptions, universities should start more first. focus on high-impact fields like medicine, engineering, and history first, then expand to other areas as VR becomes more affordable and accessible.
Finally, university and tech companies need to work together. Imagine if companies could develop budget-friendly VR headset or affordable software subscription just for educational institutions. That would make a huge difference.
Yes, the more we collaborate, the faster we can make VR education a reality for all Malaysian students, no matter where they are, no matter they are in rural area or in city.
Yes, that's totally right.
Alright, let's take a moment to imagine something incredible. It's the year 2014 now. VR isn't just an experimental tool anymore. It's a fully integrated part of education. Students across Malaysia, from Kuala Lumpur to rural Sabah, are attending virtual classes, exploring historical events in immersive videos, and working on projects with classmates from around the globe. Can you imagine it? Oh my god, I can't. Learning is no longer confined to textbook or classroom. It's interactive, engaging, and truly limitless.
Wow, it's a bit hard for me to imagine it. And here's the exciting part. This future isn't some distant dream. It's something we can actively create starting today. With the right investment in infrastructure, proper training for educators, and the development of local VR educational content, Malaysia has the potential to lead in immersive education. The real question we need to ask isn't can we afford to invest in VR? Is can we afford not to?
Exactly. Throughout today's discussions, we have seen that VR is so much more than just a flashing gadget or a cool aesthetic. It can turn real. And it is a tool that can completely transform the way we learn, helping students not just absorb information but interact with it. Whether it's stimulating complex science experiments, stepping into historical events, or solving real-world problems in a virtual setting, VR makes all learning become real. And VR makes all learning become interesting.
But as with any major shift, there are challenges we need to overcome. The cost of VR technology remains a big hurdle. Digital infrastructure, especially in rural areas, needs improvement, and teachers need proper support to effectively integrate VR into their lessons. These are small issues, and they won't be solved overnight.
That's true. But what also true is we have the power to overcome them. With smart investment, strategic planning, and collaboration between the government, university, and the private sector. We can make VR education a reality in Malaysia. Other countries are already moving in this direction. So why shouldn't we?
So, if you are a student listening to this, embrace this challenge. VR isn't just something cool to play with it. It's going to be a crucial skill in future careers, from engineering and medicine to business and the arts. The earlier you get comfortable with it, the better prepared you'll be for the digital future.
Yes, and if you are an educator, I know change can feel overwhelming, but the key is to start more. You don't need to revamp your entire curriculum overnight. Even incorporating just one VR lessons, maybe a virtual science lab, field trip, or an interactive business simulation, it can make a massive difference in how students engage with their learning. And it also saves your time.
And to our policymakers, the decision we make today will determine whether Malaysia become a leader in immersive education or lags behind. Investing in VR technology, improving our digital infrastructure, and making sure all students, urban and rural, have access to these tools isn't just about education. It's about preparing Malaysia to compete in the global knowledge economy. The time to act is now.
Yes, and that brings us to the end of today's episode of The Future of Education with VR. We had an amazing discussion today with Tang, and I hope this has given you something to think about. If you found this conversation insightful or inspiring, be sure to share this podcast with your friends, colleagues, or anyone passionate about education.
Thank you for spending this time with us. Keep questioning, keep innovating, and keep pushing the boundaries of what's possible in education. We'll see you in the next episode. Until then, happy learning.